Okay, I think we are live on YouTube. So hello everybody. This is the regular meeting for the Node.js release working group. Is going to be the last meeting of May 2025, basically. We have a large agenda today, I think. So let me share the meeting minutes in the chat. So yeah, first of all, feel free to add your names on the list. Also to help taking note will be super valuable. So yeah, first things first, do we have any announcements to make? Okay, I think that's not for now. So yeah, let's see. So first topic in the agenda today is the issue 1004, which is creating a branch rule for non-LTS staging branches. Let me also share this on the chat. Let's see where we are on this. I think Marco created the issue, but not very sure if we have big news on it yet.
Yeah, I guess the problem is that currently non-LTS branch are not protected, and also like I noticed when I created the branch for 22 that I can create the branch, but then I cannot before being a releaser I could create the branch, but I could not push on it. So these are two different topics. But anyway, in my opinion, it would be easier to just protect all staging branch, to just have one rule that protects all the staging branch, and you don't have to update it, you don't have to change it. It's just you do it once.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to use like a wildcard staging branch thing. So that way we don't have to remember this on every new module, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in favor of that. But
I think that sounds reasonable. So I think in the issue, Michael has created two rules, but they're not active. So I guess the ask is for us to review those and maybe if we agree with Marco that we only need the one rule, maybe I haven't actually looked at the two. I was just looking at the issue, not gone into look at the rules. But yeah, I guess just to follow up. For background, in the past we did have different rules for staging and current. The history for that is because the release working group was originally the LTS team for long-term support only, and current was that was just assumed to be managed by the rest of the project, like the collaboratorship and the TSC. And then the LTS team was turned into a working group, this release working group. And then, it continued to have the mission. Well, no, I hate the word mission. It had the sort of responsibilities of the long-term support policy and releases, but then it also took on like current release as part of it. So if you read through the documentation for the release working group, it's very heavily centered around long-term support because that's the origins of this group. For current and like the new majors, like Node 23 towards the latter end of this year, because that was in the past not. I mean, it is now under the sort of release working group, but in the past it wasn't. Before it was a working group, it wasn't part of those. That's why we do things like the 1st December major has like we go to the TSC and get them to also look at things and so while a lot of the stuff has been delegated to the release working group, there's some stuff that's just historical kind of that's the way it worked in the past, and we didn't want to upset it too much. I think probably it's okay for collaborators to be able to push to the main branch because that's the whole point of having the commitment. But yeah, I think maybe the staging branches, they probably would be less confusing to have just the one set of rules for staging. I mean, yeah, we'd probably
yep.
I think it'd be very rare for someone outside of either the backporters team or the releases group to have to be able to push to staging. And I guess maybe the least keeping the people who can push the staging to a smaller group both is probably better for security, but also, if someone is working on a release, there's less people that to coordinate with to make sure that someone's not pushing something or rewriting something on the staging branch from underneath you. So
that makes total sense. Yeah. So maybe as the next action, it should be like to push this change. I mean, discuss this change on the TSC level.
I don't know if it's necessary to go to TSC.
I don't think it is necessary. Okay. We may need to update. There's a documentation in the core repo about LTS branches.
Mm-hmm.
And that does say that only releases and backporters can push to the staging branches. I guess maybe just if we can double check that applies to all staging branches rather than just the LTS ones, then just so that the policy ties up with what's documented. That should be good enough. If the current documentation in core does specifically only describe it in terms of long-term support branches, then maybe we can PR a change to the documentation, and then in that PR, we can ping the TSC just for awareness and say, this is an additional tightening. I suspect there will be. Well, I don't want to speak for anyone else. I would be surprised if there were objections to it for the staging.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be objections also. So I think that's okay, because that way everybody's aware of the change. And actually, when we merge the documentation change, right, someone can just manually verify that the rules is there, basically, right? So that will help us. Who want to take leads on this action for checking out documentation?
I can do that.
Okay.
I will just add a comment under the issue saying that we discussed it a bit today, and the idea of having just one rule sound reasonable. So I will go ahead and create the PR to update the documentation, and after that we update the rule if the PR is approved.
Fantastic.
That's good.
Yeah, I also updated the notes on the agenda. So okay, that's okay. I think we can jump to the next one, which is the release plan for 2022, which is issue 1001. Let me see. I did something weird with my keyboard. Okay, yeah, here it is. So it's the issue 1001. Let me pass the link on the chat as well. Let's have a look.
In yesterday's technical steering committee call, there was some discussion about a regression in module loading. Module loaders. So there was discussion about getting that fixed, and there was an ask, when the next Node 22. So this was a regression in Node 22. The other releases are not affected, and I believe the PR that introduced the regression has been marked don't land. So we shouldn't end up with those on the 120 or 18. But there was an ask to revert a change in Node 22. There is another PR which I think is supposed to properly fix or attempt to fix whatever the regression is without doing a full reversion. But they were asking in the technical steering committee about when the next Node 22 releases, and in that call, Raphael has volunteered to do one. So he's actually put something in the table on this issue for June, 5th of June. He's put in the table. So we've got the next release scheduled. And I guess as always, if people in the future looking forward to put further ahead want to volunteer for releases after that, just put your name in the table, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, that would be great, I think, because it's going to be challenging because of the summertime as well. Probably we will, between holidays and so on. So it might be a little bit tricky. But let's keep this for now in the agenda, I guess, and let's see if someone want to volunteer after June.
Well, I think we keep all of the release. all the release plans are kept in the agenda so that we can review them each meeting.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, I think next topic in the agenda, it's the issue 999, which was regarding the onboarding of Antoine to the release working group. I think the onboarding was kind of, I think it was almost done, right? So maybe the to-do list is not updated.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I know Antoine did prepare a release, helped to prepare a release, and he prepared Node 20 release, so I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, not sure if we add his PGP keys already. Let me check it out, the README of the Node.js. That can be a good
so
option.
it's not been added to the teams yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, yeah. That first item has definitely been done, so I'll take that one.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I guess we probably need to see who's got time to help reach out to him and see if he's comfortable proceeding.
Yeah,
and
that's
then,
good.
Go to the next few steps. I mean, yeah, I think again, it's like there's no rush, but also, if you feel ready, if you feel ready, I'll have no objections to make him a release. Again, it's a confidence thing, and it's not just the whole kind of thrown in your now releaser, get on with it. But it's the preparation is to try and help get you used to the processes and I think it's more around the considerations and the evaluations of things. I mean, the tooling as well takes some getting used to, but I think it's not so much a sort of mechanical, how do I do it? It's a sort of the decision making that goes into what gets pulled or how to deal with breakages. And again, for different people, the path to actually doing it within the guidelines is slightly different. So some people are okay after one prepared release. Other people would prefer to prepare, a couple of releases to get they're comfortable. So again, we'll have to see what.
Yeah, that sounds super reasonable. Yeah, we can discuss with him. I think maybe the only follow-up action for us might be to have someone from the team who actually can take action and follow up on, like GPG additions, team addition, add him also to Slack and so on. So I'm not sure if Rui is taking leadership on this. I can ask him later on Slack.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. I will put a note. This is to check with Rui regarding onboarding next steps. Okay. Yeah. Next issue then is going to be issue 965, which is related to the PGP keys verification, which I think I made a private message on the Slack team time ago, which was from February. Let me pass the link. If you don't have access directly to that, it was on February 26. Basically, there are, in terms of conclusions, if I remember well, there were two keys that might require some additional work from individual releasers. And I think the rest was like open discussion, but I think nobody replied to my comment, so probably worth mention. I will just I think I will just make another. Yep. Feel free to ask any questions about it, and I will just send it back to as a main thread. So we should be able to see this message now on the Node.js release private channel. So you can see that all the details. But yeah, I think no missing actions from the people who is in this call. So basically we can move to the next topic in the agenda, I guess. Okay, so I will say like in the notes, like No news from now. Reminder sent on Slack. Okay. So next one is to discuss the release plan for 21 branch, which is issue 930.
I think we can drop that now. So Node 21 is end of life.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
So there is not going to be another Node 21 release.
Yeah, probably not.
So let's take the release. I'll take the label off it.
Yeah.
And
we can officially close it?
Yep.
Oh, we should wait 24 hours.
I've closed it.
Okay. Okay.
But that Node 21 is gone.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, it will be gone after tomorrow. I would be very surprised if there is any reason for us to do an emergency release tomorrow for Node 21.
Yep.
But yeah,
maybe we can.
Yeah,
maybe we can do a post on social media to say, "Hey, 21 is dead. Move on."
Yeah.
Like,
it's very rare that the current release gets the odd numbered current releases get releases after the next December major goes out. I think it may have happened once or twice, and only because there was some security vulnerability that was found in like April.
Yep.
And then it was like, yeah, beginning of May, have to do security releases. And then it was kind of, yeah. I think that's the only scenario in which we normally would do a follow-up odd numbered release in like May.
Yep.
Usually it would be if it hasn't happened by April, then probably won't be another odd numbered major, the odd major, a release in an odd majored line, unless it's a security thing.
That sounds good. Yeah. Next topic in the agenda then is 20, actually. So it's the issue 855, basically. So I think currently it's in inactive LTS, if I remember well. Yeah, it's in active LTS. So yeah, and I think.
sorry, which one? 20?
20, yeah.
Yeah, active LT. Yeah, I can volunteer to do it the week, the week of the 17th, like the 18th of June, around that time. Yes. So I will add myself in the in the schedule.
Okay.
Thanks. Sounds good.
Thank you, Marco. Okay, so the next one to discuss probably is the 18, which is the issue 737. Let me also set it on the chat.
Yeah, so 18 is now in maintenance, so we don't have to do regular releases.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously, we have to balance that with seeing what's eligible. I think most of the stuff that's eligible will be some of the dependency updates.
Yep.
Again, it's kind of touch and go as to whether they're necessary.
Yep.
I'm thinking more of things like, for example, OpenSSL. We almost certainly, when there are new versions of OpenSSL, want to get those landed, but they would either be, if they contain like higher severity things, then normally they would be either rolled up into a security release, or we'll to try and prioritize releases of Node 18 to include those. If so, there is an OpenSSL release announced for next week, but according to the current information, the highest severity in that will be low. So again, that would be a sort of, we will probably upgrade Node 18 to that version of OpenSSL, but if the vulnerabilities being fixed in that are low, and we agree in the Node project that it's still low. I mean, I'd be surprised if a low vulnerability, something OpenSSL rate is low would be rated higher by Node, but
Yep.
we would want an openness that openness update from next week in Node.js at some point. If it's low, it probably doesn't have to be next week or the week after, but at some point, because eventually you assume there will be a node security release and you kind of want to have as little changes as possible in the security release. So if you get a security release and there's like an OpenSL bump, if we haven't had the bumps in the middle, then it doesn't make it impossible to upgrade, but it makes it a bigger sort of risk if it's now putting changes unrelated to the vulnerabilities that we wanted fixed in the security release. And the same with some of the other dependencies like Sierras and GHTP2. We don't get vulnerabilities in those as often, but occasionally we do. And again, if there's a big gap between what's in Node 18 and the new release that has the fix, it's riskier. Yep. So yeah. I did a Node 18 release 2 weeks ago, or just under 2 weeks ago. So we were caught up with the dependencies up at that point, at least the dependencies that were legible, given the 2 weeks and current rule, which we still follow. I mean, NPM is continually updating. So again, that's one of those that we don't want to fall too far behind in Node 18. But again, there's no expectation that there's a regular release cadence for Node 18. So I think, we can keep an eye out if there's anything that lands in 20 or 22 that we think should be pulled back for 18. There's no automatic the expectation from maintenance is that things don't automatically kind of flow into 18. It's kind of it's now in maintenance, and it's up to the release team to make judgment calls as to what lands, and ideally the minimal amount of changes land there. Plus, anything that we feel, if they're test stability things, those always help, because you don't want, the more stable the tests are, the less disruptive it is to try and get something through the CI. And yeah, anything that people ask, we consider, but be careful there that it's not an automatic yes, but equally if there's some justification within policy, it can be done. For example, we do sometimes include things for the Node.js API, because it's easier for users if all supported lines support similar functionality.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I think sometimes some of the module loading stuff has been asked to be backported to again make it easier for people to write code targeting. But we balance that against how disruptive is it. If it's a huge change, then we might need to be more convinced it's not going to upset other things. If there's small trivial changes, then possibly okay. But yeah, at this point, the overriding goal for 18 more than anything is to try and not to risk it as much as possible. But yeah, so again, maybe we can pump this till next to the next meeting to see if there's anything 18. But again, if people spot anything, either tag it with the LTS watch, or post in the plan to say we might need to have a release for this issue, whatever that issue is. But yeah, I'm not aware of anything at this point in time that says we need to schedule Node 18 release in the next couple of weeks. So
yeah, that was a super good summary, Richard. Thank you. Okay, I think then the last official topic in the agenda is in the repository for the canary in the coal mine, which is the issue 1060, 1060, which is related to the results. Let me have a look. So yeah, Node.js latest canary in the coal mine results. Okay. I think Rafael opened this issue.
Yeah, so basically, canary in the gold mine, it's all red again. And the amount of failures increase release by release. I noticed more and more failures.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a perennial problem that we've always been chasing. We don't really have a good solution other than trying to get people with time to look at it and keeping it updated, tidy, skips when necessary or pings when necessary. I don't think there's an easy way around this. I mean, people have suggested in the past pinning modules to certain versions, but the problem then is, you might be pinned to a really old version, and that's not the version people are installing into their applications and trying. Yeah, it's always been a maintenance overhead with Stitchum. Again, I'm keen that it's not solely like the release team that's looking at this. I would like to encourage people from outside the release team to be looking at Stitchum. But again, it's kind of, I understand it is challenging. Not everyone has access to all the platforms, but I think a lot of the stuff is just not platform specific. I think it's just things like flakes and I guess the environment that some modules assume stuff about the environment the tests are running in, which is possibly not always the case in like GitHub Actions or Jenkins where we run Stitchum. So yeah, I'm not sure what Raphael was going to propose other than a call to action to try and just look at look at it and try and drive it down. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Stitchum pass. Jenkins. There's always been some failures on all platforms, I think. Possibly maybe one or two platforms, possibly once or twice may have gone green, but I think that's been very few and far between. But on the flip side, the reason we still have it, despite all this pain, is it does occasionally catch regressions that we didn't intend to include in the release proposals, and it has stopped things from going out in releases, which would have been unintentionally breaking. So we persist with it because it has some value, but again, it's balancing.
I'm not very sure how we can get more engagement on other teams or collaborators to help us.
Feel it's one of those things. It feels like it's because it always moves. So even if we magically manage to get it passed tomorrow, chances are in a couple of weeks something will break again. And I think that sort of thing, you tend to get bursts of activity where maybe you can get a bunch of people to look at it, and for a short while, lots of things get looked at and maybe fixed, and then it sort of just slowly drifts again, and until the next time where someone says, "Oh, we've suddenly got all of these again."
I guess this is one of the things where if you don't have someone who's paid to do it, it's very hard to keep to keep up with it, because even you put effort, you do it once, and then next week it breaks, and you do I'm not gonna do it again. So I think that if the project decides to do open collective and this kind of stuff, this could be one of the things that would be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, that's 100% a good idea. Let's see if we can get some funding for this, because otherwise I don't think it's going to be an easy thing to do. And I think the same the same category we can have flaky tests as well that are also tricky on the releases. So even if we try to go in the next collaborator summit and try to propose a working group of people who suffer from this and are interested to coordinate the action and try to make it more digestible, maybe even a hackathon format or something, to bring new faces to help us. It's still to be a little bit tricky to keep track over the time. So not very sure. I was really close to suggest that in the last collaborator summit as part of the agenda, but not very sure if it's going to generate a lot of engagement.
I think the challenge for everything is ongoing engagement. It's not impossible to get short-term interest in something and activity in the short term, but sustaining that over the longer term is hard. I mean, even in working groups, we've seen that, you know, over time, participation in working groups fluctuates. Sometimes you get a lot of activity in the working groups, and then other times it's quieter as people, you know, have other priorities, or, you know, like you said, summer's coming up. It wouldn't surprise me if like there's less activity in working groups during the summer. So, or on the flip side, sometimes, you know, holiday periods are the time that some people are busiest in the project because then they have time away from work or whatever, or, yeah, other distractions. So yeah, different people have different ways of engaging, and yeah, there's always a challenge in keeping a continuous you know, engagement level of engagement, balanced, you know, balanced with, you know, we're all volunteers here.
Yep.
At least in these functions.
Yeah, let me add some notes for this topic on the agenda. So okay. Anything else outside of the agenda that we want to discuss?
Yeah, so I don't think we need to decide right this moment, but there was a reminder in Slack to think about Node 23 and who's going to who's going to, you know, lead Node 23. So yeah, we don't have to make a decision right now, but I think, you know, I guess the ask to the release work group members is consider, you know, if you want to volunteer to lead Node 23 as the releaser. I guess for the last couple of majors, we've done it in like pairs, or, you know, had a small, you know, not just one person, but, you know, a number of people perhaps. So yeah, that could be an option again for Node 23. So yeah, Node 23 will be October. So, you know, it doesn't have to be right now, but again, the reminder's there that, you know, so that we can, yeah, I don't know whether we should have an issue maybe so that we can tag it for the agenda, so that, you know, we don't drift to, say, September and sitting around thinking, well, is anyone actually going to do Node 23? So yeah, just so I can't. I think we said it, was it 5 months or 6 months? We set Slack up to say, you know, ping a reminder in Slack.
Yeah, I guess it's good to create an issue.
Yeah, that can be a good option. So yeah, I think it's also a good opportunity for releasers to get the chance to make a major, like to do a major for the first time, which can be, for example, my case. But yeah, I'm not very sure how much availability I will have in October, but potentially I will be interested on getting involved on the 23.
I have one question. I noticed that there is still the LTS team. So I wonder what's the role of that team, and if it's still something that is it is still a thing.
So I don't have the reference to hand. I do know that it's come up before in the working group about whether we should get rid of the LTS team. So there has been a opinion expressed in the past, which I don't know if that is still held in the working group, that new releases should work first in current before moving to LTS. I don't think we've ever actually enforced that through the GitHub groups, because I don't think the LTS is actually, you know, for things like branch protection. I'd have to check, actually. I don't actually know what's in the branch protection, whether it's the LTS team or the releases team. Yeah, that may be possibly the only place. There's nothing in Jenkins, for example, that mentioned the LTS team. The again, it's sort of historical, going back to the LTS team was the original team that this working group evolved into. And
Yeah, because
I
if you
mean, I guess the only other reason to have it was that it's not for controls, but maybe for people that are interested in LTS. But again, I don't think we've had much discussions around like long-term support policy that people outside of the working group have got involved in. I mean, the team is there if people are interested in LTS and want to be tagged when things come up for long-term support. They could be added to that team, but yeah, given that I don't think anything is gated on that for access, so you could be on that team but not get additional access to things. But yeah, I think it has come up to pass whether we need that. So we do have backporters. Backporters do have write permissions to the staging branches, so that's a different team from LTS. But I think in practice, the membership of LTS backporters and releases is very similar. There may be one or two people that are only in one rather than the other. Yeah, I
the
Yeah.
like I brought up this topic because I saw in the documentation that only people that are part of the LTS group can perform major releases. And for example, I don't
Okay.
know how that is up to date because I'm not a member of the LTS group. So I don't know if, for example, Rafael is a member of the LTS group, but
That's
so I won't.
that's a good point. I think we should probably discuss that. I mean, I don't see why you need to be a member of LTS to do a major release. I think you would need to be a releaser. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I can't see what being. I think the only way, the only reason that that could only be either historical because the LTS team was the original team managing releases, or it ties back to that idea that maybe there's some sort of graduation process, which I don't think we're really following. Well, sorry, that's not true. We're sort of following, but informally, where new releases do current releases, and then maybe they can after that do LTS releases. But I don't think we've formally said, right, we'll now add you to the LTS team, and actually, if you're not in that team, you're blocked from doing things. So, yeah. I can't think of a reason right now that the LTS team that needs to continue existing. But
Yeah, let me check the documentation because I remember that I read it somewhere, but I need to check.
it wouldn't surprise me if there is some mentions. So yeah, if you do find them, maybe open an issue and find and quote the places where it's mentioned, and we can have that discussion in the issue, and if needs be, throw it on the agenda if we need a decision made.
Yeah, maybe we
All
can
right.
reopen an all pull request because I was remember this and at the time that I joined the team, there was a kind of discussion about the governance, and one of the topics that was brought by Miles was the option to remove the concept of the LTS team as a kind of a figure in practical terms of how the team is structured, because there was a lot of discussion around that. Because as Marco said, the documentation seems a little bit outdated in that sense. So I mean, or we are not exactly following that process right now, more or less what we just said. So basically, the pull request is the 912.
Okay.
Basically, and basically we closed that because I think we didn't follow up with this like officially in the agenda or something. So it was like kind of a discussion ongoing, but not really structured in any of the meetings. So I think we never have the full forum to discuss it. And also, as an isolated pull request, maybe never got the attention. So maybe an option is to reopen this pull request if this makes sense. I mean, I not remember fully the context, but just by checking the file changes, we can see like a lot of removal references for the LTS. And actually you can see how it's got removed from the README itself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about reopening this particular one,
Yeah.
because I think there were things in there. I'm only just glancing back through it, so yeah, that
Exactly.
PR is removing like the backporters team, and we definitely have things about the back referring to the backporters team in the documentation.
Yep.
And I think the branch protection rules include the backporters team. I'd need to check, But yeah,
Yep.
I think we probably want to keep the Backwaters team, but I think the LTS team probably we could reopen that discussion about dropping that.
Yep.
But yeah, if there is a mismatch between what's documented and how we're operating, I think we should fix that. It doesn't mean we have to strictly adhere to what was documented. We should have that discussion, and if need be, update the documentation to match what we're actually doing. So yeah, it'll be good if people do spot discrepancies to raise those, and either through a pull request or an issue saying what should we do here and there. And
yeah, we also have a CityGym team. Just found out.
we do. I kind of want to keep that because, again, I want to have the option of being able to add people that are interested. Well, being interested is another question, but I really want so this working group covers policy and releases, and sort of SitGym falls under it because we use it as part of the release process. But I would, as far as possible, like to not restrict membership of the working group to releases. And for things like SitGym, I don't think there's any reason that you have to be a releaser to be able to maintain SitGym. Now, there may be challenges about getting people interested enough to volunteer to look at SitGym, but if some other collaborator that we, is a collaborator and was trusted to the project wants to maintain SitGym or help maintain SitGym, I would have no objections to adding them to the SitGym team to maintain SitGym, and that being separate from releases. There's no expectation or burden on you to say if you want to volunteer to maintain SitGym, that's great. You're not expected to to now suddenly be on the hook for releases or some of the other stuff that the working group does. So yes, the meetings that we've had have tended to be around releases because most of the people active in the group are the releases. But again, I think there are ways, and I think that did come up in the last Collab Summit, was whether we can describe ways that people can help the working group or be involved with the working group without becoming a releaser. Because I think becoming a releaser, there's expectations on you if you do that, and that also comes with the time commitment or an expectation of some commitment. Whereas I think there are ways that people could help out the working group that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be a full-blown releaser. And SitGym is one of those. Again, the challenge will be getting people interested in that. And again, it depends. There's two parts to SitGym. There's the modules and keeping the modules passing, but then there's also occasionally we do update SitGym. We modernize the code. Well, I say modernize, things have changed. I think in the last few years, I remember there were a few PRs to move from the rimref package, npm package, to using the recursive delete functionality that's built into core. So again, it's like as things go into core, can we strip things out of some of the dependencies out of SitGym? I think I don't remember who it was. It might be Michael Zasser did a sort of ESM rewrite of SitGym. So yeah, there's maintenance of SitGym as a tool, and then there's also maintenance of the packages that are being tested in SitGym as in the lookup table. So yeah, there is that SitGym team, and I think I would like to keep it because I think there should be a team for the maintainers of that package. It happens to be in the working group, but yeah. But that's my opinion.
No, I agree.
The working group membership has changed over time. So again, I think if there are questions like that, we should ask the questions and see what the current working group membership feels about things. And I'm happy to give history as I remember it or that I'm aware of. And I think even people like Miles might have opinions on some things if we ask in the past. But again, it's kind of, I think for an active group, it's good to revisit occasionally things, for the current membership, as and when things come about.
Yeah, I agree with you, Richard. I mean, makes a lot of sense to have the door open for just
I think
releasing people, like
I think the
more
other
open
thing
tools.
is the distinction between GitHub teams that are used for access control and GitHub teams which are like notification teams, like for people that are interested in something and want to be pinged. I can't remember if the SitGym team is an access control team or a pinging team. I'd have to go into the SitGym repo and see who has been configured to have right access to the repository. I think it is that SitGym team. So again, it's going back to that LTS team discussion as to whether that LTS team, I think that's a pinging notification team rather than an access control team. But again, it would be good to check that. And I don't think we have an easy way other than maybe perhaps we could drop a line or two into the README because the README does list the membership of the teams. Or I think in the teams you can put descriptions. So maybe that could be an option. Maybe not just for our group, but for all the teams in Novo. That's something for the TSC to have a discussion about as to separating out or making it more clear which groups are being used for access control, which groups are being, and then maybe that falls into. I know the security working group are having some discussions about the threat model to the project rather than the threat model to Node itself, but the threat model to like how the project operates and who has access to what. And maybe that's part of that discussion as to how do we manage the GitHub teams and the memberships and which teams are being used for access and which teams people are just being added to so that they can get pinged on issues or notifications for people that are interested in things.
All right, I opened an issue on the GitHub repo, so we can discuss there asynchronously. And
Yeah, thank you, Marco.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
I think that is more or less for the agenda. Anything additionally that we want to discuss? Okay, so in that case, I think we are more or less ready to finish the call. So yeah, I give you back like just 2 minutes. But yeah, please check it out the meeting notes. I was dropping like some fast notes, so just to be sure that I capture everything or fix anything that is there not correct. And I will create a pull request just in like the next half an hour or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
See you.
bye bye.